I read your book,
Okay.
Radiation Nation. I'm about halfway and I learned a lot of things that I think a lot. I'm a chiropractor, obviously, so a lot of my patients should know, but they
Yeah.
don't know because of the
Right.
lack of awareness.
Right.
So today we're going to be talking about very interesting topics regarding EMF and how that affects our overall health. But first
Okay.
of all, usually I get more of a message when I understand the messenger. So I want to know how'd you got into this, first of all.
Actually, by accident, believe it or not, I worked for the Bell system in Bell Labs for quite a number of years, and I used to develop the standards for the Bell system. I used to test the equipment that was installed in the Bell system. So I had a lot of background in the technical side of telecommunications, including cell service and all other forms of service. And probably 20 years ago, my boys were visiting me, and they were men at the time. And my wife says, "Get those laptops off your lap. I want grandchildren."
I've heard that so many times from my wife.
And I said, "The power levels are so low. There's no way that's going to happen." But then I thought about it. I never really spent much time looking on the medical side
Sure.
of technology, but only on the technical side. So I started looking. And even back then, we knew that after about 3 to 4 hours, 25% of the male sperm is immobile.
Oh my God.
15, 20 years ago, we knew that. But did you know that?
No.
I didn't know that, right? And so the more I looked, the more I found this was like cigarette smoking. In the 50s, we knew that if you smoked, you were a real man.
Yes.
It's also true that the medical community knew at that time that there was a direct link between smoking and lung cancer. But we didn't know it in the 50s. And I was a real man because I started smoking real young.
I think Camel had advertisements with medical doctors in
Yeah,
their
yeah,
pictures.
exactly. They did. It was like crazy, right? And the cowboys that smoked cigarettes, real men, right?
Yeah.
But yet at that time they knew. How many years did it take for the medical community to understand that there was a direct correlation? It took years, 30, 40 years, before they were required to properly brand the products as dangerous. Well, that's just like this. It's like the medical community, scientific research communities knew that there was a problem, but the average person, including those in technology, didn't know. So we looked at it a little bit more, and I said, well, look, I'm not going to change the industry, but I am going to tell the industry that are the recipients of the technology a little bit of what my thoughts are on the potential dangers of the technologies.
Absolutely.
And then we actually produced a product, a Defender Shield, a Defender Pad for the lap.
So that was the first product.
That was the first product,
Okay.
the first one we built. Why? Protecting the sperm of my sons.
Sure.
And then some of their friends said, "Hey, I'd like one of them." Okay. Then some other friends wanted. So all of a sudden, I was starting to build products for people, and it started growing, growing, growing. Then I read an article about a 6-year-old girl that was harassed her parents to use a cell phone. She wanted a cell phone, just like all the other friends had. A healthy, well-adjusted girl. A year later, she passed away from cancer on the frontal lobe.
Oh, jeez.
And I said, I know the technology I developed for the Defender Pad would help if I put it in a phone. And all of a sudden, I was off and running, building products for the personal use of anybody exposed to
And what year was this?
2011.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think we formally 2011. And then we wrote the book, as you said. And I wrote the book because I was frustrated. There was so much information we knew at that time, yet none of us knew it. So I said, well, with my son, I said, let's go put together a little bit of description of what the technology is, what science knows about it today, and maybe some things you may want to be able to do as a result of exposure.
Practical stuff.
Practical steps you can take to try to keep safe. That's my starting.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So because a lot of these, and even today, 2025, a lot of people don't know about this.
It's stunning.
We talked about this a little bit, right? Let's assume you have a headache.
Yeah.
And it's being caused because of EMF, right?
Right.
You go to a medical doctor,
Right.
and they're like, all right, you got a headache. Take these 2 medications and come back when it hurts again.
Yeah. Or you're sitting next to a router and you're falling asleep on your couch. Why?
Right.
What's going on? Simple things that you do and things you bring to the medical community are misguided
Sure.
medical community responses. Why? Because they're just not fully aware of the impacts.
Sure. And this is for the people that are going to watch this, is just because they're doctors, or just like myself, just because we're doctors doesn't mean we know
It's true.
a lot of those. We actually don't know, a lot of us.
Yeah, actually, I was telling you a story about a phlebotomist, I think they call them. And I talked about high hemoglobin and that what's the source of high hemoglobin. And they exclusively suggested it was from sleep apnea. That's not true. They didn't fully understand what the source of the problem could be. And we're looking at some community work, medical community work, where there's a better understanding than we've ever had before. Yet, the average clinician doesn't have that information. Well, why is that?
Right. The system is damaged. I mean,
It's a bit. And actually, it turns out that you work in a silo, I worked in a silo, your friend works in a silo, and we never talk.
exactly.
And that's sort of the challenge we have, is to try to go across those silos and help us understand each other on how things affect the human body in a way that we can do something about it.
Absolutely. Well, and for the general person, right, that hasn't read the book, can you explain to them what is EMF, right?
Okay.
It just in simple terms, which I know you're great at it.
So, like 15 years ago, I had a cell phone in my hand. I didn't have anybody to call because none of my friends had a cell phone, right? And actually, maybe even longer than that, right? And so technology, even 15 years ago, was just entering into our environment.
Sure.
It wasn't really here as it is today. Today, 98% of the population has a cell phone.
Wow. That's a
It's
lot.
huge numbers. And the standards were developed 1966 for 6-foot males using a cell phone. And the standard was to establish the penetration of a 1.6 watt per kilogram signal into the head. They allowed it to increase by 2 degrees
Okay.
and 1 to 2 inches into the head. 6-foot male represents, as you know, about 2% of the population.
This doesn't take into account females, kids, nothing.
Right, exactly. And guess what?
Yeah.
Kids are using it at 6 years old today.
Yes.
Right. And what's the impact there?
And these standards were set up when?
1966.
And this hasn't been changed since.
No. Actually, Kennedy, our current lead in the health space, he actually brought the FCC to court a few years ago and argued that the standards haven't been fixed since 1966 and current data was never reviewed by the FCC. He won.
Wow.
So, but guess what? The standard hasn't changed yet. So, what does that really mean? Well, the standard 2 degrees, 1 to 2 inches for a 6-foot male, for a 6-year-old child, completely through their head.
Process, right? Yeah.
Why? The cranium is not thick. The densities are not there for the bone. And so all of a sudden, it's passing through, even through the blood-brain barriers.
Wow.
It's going right through the head. So do you know what the impact of that is? I don't. But I do believe it is.
Sure.
And we're just learning about it because it's only been around just for the last 15 years or so. So we're all learning about it.
Everybody talks about, for example, in my field, X-rays, right? That's a type of wave, goes in. Everybody knows that there's a long-term damage.
Yeah.
But then you have electromagnetic frequencies, which are a little bit They're non-ionizing, right? Or
Right.
whatever they call it.
Right.
So in the short term, it doesn't give you that much stress because you're thinking, well, it's not that bad as X-rays. But long term
Right.
and repetitive, that can definitely affect our overall health.
There's no question. In fact, think of it this way: if you used a cell phone 15 minutes a day, it would it's unlikely it would ever impact the frontal lobe. You're safe. If you use it 1 to 2 hours a day for 10 years, you have 3 times more likelihood of frontal lobe cancer of the brain.
Wow,
That's a
that's
fact.
crazy. And then you add to that, you add Wi-Fi, you add tablets,
Exactly.
the cars. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
Everywhere you go.
I'm gonna assume these Teslas and electric vehicles, they have some sort of frequency that's affecting.
Yeah,
us, right?
actually. So, what is electromagnetic radiation? Actually, there's some very, very low electromagnetic radiation that comes from the wall.
Okay.
60 hertz. If house is full of 60 hertz. So 60 hertz can really bother you, just like an RF signal, but it's much lower in frequency. And then you have the cell phones, laptops, tablets, all using around 1 gigahertz.
Okay.
And that's like a hertz is 1 cycle per second. A gigahertz is 1 billion cycles per second.
Okay.
So it's much, 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 much faster. And it oscillates and it pulses. Very different than your low end. When you get to the RF, that's what it's doing. And that's where the damage actually starts
Oh wow.
creating, because it's a very different signal. X-rays in the terahertz range, they're a very different signal. And by the way, there's a real reason they throw a lead plate in front of you,
Yep.
because they don't want that to penetrate your chest.
Yeah.
Because if it's too much and it's accumulative, as you were saying, it's pretty dangerous.
Yep.
You get cancer from it.
Absolutely.
You mutate the cells from that. And that's what RF does. And as I said before, you're 3 times more likely if you're a heavy user of a cell phone.
Yeah. Which
And
a lot of people nowadays, especially younger generations,
oh yeah,
are
think
way
of it.
worse.
Yeah, Dr. Prasad's a physician, and he's a researcher, a biochemist, and he was the first X-ray guy. He was an MD X-ray guy, and I've known him for years. He's like almost in his 90s. I gave him the book to read, and in the book you'll notice I mentioned that there can be DNA damage from a teenager putting a cell phone in the back pocket because it's so close to the womb.
Yeah.
He called me up and he said, "No, Dan, I don't think that's true." And I said, "Okay, some research suggests it may be. I'm just trying to open up that Pandora's box of subject matter to review." And 2 years later, he calls me up and he says, "Somebody came into my clinic. She was a healthy 30-year-old that had a stillborn
Oh,
with 2 mutated cells, that the probability of having 1 was 0. The probability of having 2 was even more 0.
Wow.
And he said, "You may be right. It was the influence in the back pocket." So you can mutate a cell of a teenage girl at 12 years old that can travel with that child in subtending generations, may be influenced by that mutation.
Wow.
That's pretty serious, in
And
my
that's
opinion.
females putting their phones in their pocket.
In the or their breast, right?
breast, yeah.
Same thing.
I see it in Puerto Rico. They put it like here and they walk around with it.
And they say, "Doctor, I have cancer right here." That's where you put your phone.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of study about that demonstrating, in fact, it's true. It's directly correlated to putting a cell phone in your bra.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's not. So the science has matured over the last 5-10 years. One of the things that happened, I'm a believer in research that's statistically significant. In other words, the populations that you study are large enough. And epidemiology has been around for 100 years, and it's always been the leading indicator of science on our human bodies. Well, National Toxicity Program was a federal government program that was about $25 million, run about 5-10 years ago. They found from their study that there was a statistically significant increase in frontal lobe cancer and heart cancer. So it was from a cell phone transmission over time that was constant.
Wow. And what happened with that study?
They ignored it.
Oh, geez, of course they did.
Yeah, it's like bizarre.
Was it like a cover up? Somebody paid?
No, they didn't think they were going to. Actually, it was triggered by the FCC. They wanted to understand the environment and was it really a problem or not. Well, it came out and it showed statistically significant evidence. What that means is they had 10,000 populations that they radiated and had 10,000 that wasn't radiated, and they saw what cancer rates were, what mutated cells were, and it was significant increase in the population radiated. And that was reinforced by another research study in Ramazzani Institute in Italy, which was identical and came up to the same conclusions. And so we have a lot of evidence.
What do you think is being ignored?
If you were $1 trillion business, what would you do?
Try to get rid of it.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot of counter data that's always being generated that suggests that there may be something wrong with the studies that are being done. It's bizarre, but it's happened with smoking. That's what they did.
Yeah.
They paid for their position. I have my brother's an attorney, and he did he took to court a company that what was it? There was a product that was put on the market that people were dying from, and in the court, he proved that there was a whole team of experts that were basically on the staff of this company writing articles that were countering what was going on in the industry. I'm not saying that's true here with the telecom, but it's certainly true. There's clear evidence of that. In fact, the head of the CTIA is a cell phones company, a cell phone consortium of all the participants in the telecom space. And the head of that was, the chairman of that, went from an industry expert to the FCC's the head of the FCC.
Really?
Yeah. And guess what? That was the guy who approved 5G.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Yeah. So that may be perfectly innocent, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's
Follow the money.
Yeah. It's all money. This is $1 trillion business, and there's a lot of money being spent to squelch.
So you have the telecommunication companies, right? And on the other hand, you have the people that sell the products.
Yeah.
Are they kind of like in bed together?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no question about it. And honestly, I actually know some of these guys because I was in a telecom space for so many years. And they were engineer like me. They didn't understand the medical side. And so they weren't knowledgeable enough to make maybe some of the choices that are being made.
Do you think they ignore also the research or?
Oh, yeah. And you would too. I mean, I would too. And I'll tell you why. If you're looking to establish a point, what you're going to do is get a population that can give you statistically significant results. As you know, research today has 100 people, maybe 50 people, maybe 25 people, but not 10,000 people.
Sure.
So is it really legitimate? Certainly from a study itself, we can't tell. So you look at multiple studies, and you sort of look at the similarities and try to make conclusions. Those kinds of studies, metadata studies they call it, actually points to these changes to the human body as a reaction to the cell phones and the RF in our environment.